All right, this is Max Keiser TV. George Galloway, Sputnik, back on the air. Another season, another exciting season. You've had Seamus Milne already. I saw the interview when it airs. It's a knockout interview talking about everything that's happening in the UK with this huge, not huge, but a Tory majority now in the Parliament.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a landslide in terms of seats. If you look at the map, Britain has turned blue, but it hasn't really. Only a quarter of the people in Britain actually voted for David Cameron. And yet he's embarked on a programme of swinging cuts, savage austerity, a big increase in the security state. Might not be safe for people like you and I to talk on the air.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. Now, I don't know about this word swinging. It sounds like uniquely a colloquialism here in these islands, the swinging.
We are two people divided by a common language.
I learn new words every time I speak with an English person. Now, George, David Cameron said, quote, "For too long, we have been a passively tolerant society, saying to our citizens, as long as you obey the law, we will leave you alone." That's from the Prime Minister. He's suggesting that just obeying the law is not enough, that the state will be in your face 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, the reason I was anxious to speak to you today, Mr. Galloway, is that you've been in politics a long, long time. As an American, I believe this is not only a threat to Britain, but a threat to America. Yeah. We need a policy of containment to contain Cameron's tyranny. I don't want this kind of nonsense spilling over across the Atlantic to America. We did a revolution already to get rid of these toffs, these royalists, these monarchs, these aristocrats, these a-holes that Cameron represents. Now, how do we impose some containment? We need to contain Cameron. He's a menace.
Well, I couldn't put it more eloquently than that. I won't try to. It's hard to overstate how sinister that comment from the Prime Minister of Britain really is. That we will no longer accept that it's enough to obey the law. We're going to do something about you. We're going to do something about those who have alternative views, opinions, programs, or even dreams. If you step outside of the dictatorship of the prevailing orthodoxy, you will be dealt with, even though you haven't broken the law. This is tyranny.
But what's shocking is that the New York State Department calls up Cameron and says, you should start a hate campaign against Putin. And meanwhile, Putin is doing a deal with Merkel, and now Ukraine is in history. There's no longer a military operation there. But Cameron's continuing the hate speech. He's a rageful, hate-speaking puppet of Murdoch and the U.S. regime. Will he at least start to tone down his belligerent rhetoric and warmongering in Ukraine, for example, now that the rest of the world has actually moved on? The new hate figure in the UK is now Nicola Sturgeon as the threat, the existential threat from Scotland. She's the new existential threat du jour. Would you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, the Scottish nationalists, again, because of our bizarre electoral system, got almost 99% of the seats, 97 or 98% of the seats on 50% of the vote. Cameron got a parliamentary majority on 24% of the vote. So we shouldn't overstate the hegemony of either, actually. Most people in Scotland probably would still vote no. It might be a narrow, close-run thing. Probably still vote no. That might not be the case in a year or two when it comes up, but I think now that would be true. Most people in Britain will be horrified at these tyrannical ravings of David Cameron. I think he's showing himself. He was the Clark Kent of the operation before this. Now he's bursting open his suit and showing off the Superman T-shirt.
Yeah, but he's not Superman. He's ripping off his shirt and showing himself to be Bane, the evil menace from the Batman movies.
Good point. Good point.
Now, last question, George Galloway. Yeah. This government in the UK right now, led by the Tories, they are talking about getting out of the EU because the rhetoric is that they want Britain to be sovereign. At the same time, they support TTIP and these other global trade deals that are superseding of UK sovereignty. How do they get away with that duplicity? But would you agree, though, that these TTIP and these global trade deals do, in fact, undercut British sovereignty?
Totally. And that's one of the reasons for UKIP's almost 4 million votes, that there are many millions of people in Britain fear, loathe, hate the way that control over our own destiny has passed to the state, to the European Union, and now to the transatlantic trade arrangements that are underway. And there's a fair bit of opposition already. I believe that that will grow. But the European Union referendum is a bit of a fraud because David Cameron doesn't actually want to leave the European Union. Big business has no intention of rolling over and letting Britain leave the European Union because its interests are threatened there. The danger is that Cameron, having promised a referendum, may now lose it. It may move out of his control. That's what happens with Frankenstein monsters. They're called monsters for a reason. Once you've built them, they're out of your control. So on Scotland, on Europe, Britain faces a very turbulent 5 years under a Tory government with only a majority of 12. Now, I've sat in many parliaments with small majorities. John Major's life was hell because of a small majority. And we need to get to work, public opinion needs to get to work to undermine, subvert, if you will, if I don't get arrested as I leave the studio for using the word, subvert Cameron's intention to turn Britain into something even more ugly than the Tories have turned it into already.
All right, George Galloway, thanks so much for being on Max Keiser TV, and we're looking forward to more exciting episodes of Sputnik.
Excellent.
And that's going to do it for Max Keiser TV. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye, y'all.